Alrighty, welcome back to the Jewcurious Show. It is I, your friendly neighborhood Rabbi John Carrier, and in just a moment, we are going to start this extra Fun Friday. If you're not familiar with Fun Friday, you can ask a rabbi anything you want to about Judaism, Jewish traditions, customs, wisdom, recipes, etc. Only on Fridays, I answer them while playing video games. Just, to have a little fun. What's wrong with that? So, really glad you tuned in today. We have an extra special edition because today is the 1-year anniversary of the Jewcurious School. And I want to tell you all about that here in just a minute when we resume our session right after this brief musical interlude. Time to show my face. And hello, very nice to see you this morning. It is Friday, October the 25th, as of the time of this recording, and it shall ever be known in history as Jewcurious School Day, at least among a small circle of dedicated students. It is the 1-year anniversary since the very first student signed up for the Jewcurious School. Hi, Amanda. Thank you for that. Thank you for all your support. And we're so excited. Amanda also goes by Teresa, so we'll see. Anyway, I'm really excited. It has been quite a year. About a year ago today, a little bit before a year ago, I started putting all the pieces together. But a year ago today, the Jewcurious School opened its doors to our very first student. So it is happy birthday to the Jewcurious School Day. If you can picture the Jewcurious School as a baby, and that baby is sitting in a high chair, mushing cake all over its face. Not a very dignified image for a school dedicated to learning the holy tradition that has changed my life. The reason I started this school was because I firmly believe that learning about Judaism, getting to know Jewish people, adopting some of the practices into your life, and maybe even committing to being a part of this people can give you a life of greater meaning, right? A life of greater joy, a greater human connection and personal growth. And that's what I believe in my heart of hearts, because that's what this path has given to me. And now my job is just, for the rest of my life to just pay it forward, right? And so that's why I became a rabbi. That's why I started teaching online the way I do. And so hope you're enjoying it. We're having a great time. Been teaching on YouTube for, going on, 4 or 5 years now, and teaching in the Jewcurious School for 1 year today. I'm giddy. I can't even talk, which is hard for somebody who's going to be talking for the next couple of hours. But I'm really glad that you're here to celebrate with me, and what better day than on Fun Friday to do it. If you're not familiar with this show, when you tune in live, whether you're here on Twitch or on Facebook or on YouTube, there's some sort of comment or chat functionality that you can type in whatever questions you have, and I will, God willing, see them in the chat. It moves kind of fast sometimes, but I do the best I can, and I'll answer whatever questions you have. There's no question that's dumb, there's no question that's embarrassing, because I'll tell you, any question that you have, I've probably had myself at one point and have learned some of the answers, and I'm happy to pay it forward and give those answers to you. But on Fridays, we do it a little bit differently. On Fridays, we do it while I play video games, just because the video games are fun. And I, if you're concerned about Call of Duty or Doom or something like that, I try to keep it family friendly. I only do the ESRB rating, ages 10 and up. And so today we're playing Mario Odyssey. We've been playing that for a while, so I just want to see through the campaign before we move on to something else like Zelda, or maybe do a little bit of Mario Kart in there somewhere. We played Splatoon, Splatoon 2 specifically. It's a little paintball game. But so we got already got Nawa64 says Yom Huledet Sameach to the Jewcurious School and Rabbi John. So it's a couple days till my own personal birthday, which makes this easier to remember. Today is also, if I'm not mistaken, today is Pablo Picasso's birthday. Big, personal fan, huge influence on my artistic taste. Pablo Picasso, I think his birthday is today, so I'll just have to remember the Jewcurious School birthday is on Pablo Picasso's birthday as well. And if you're familiar with the Repo Man soundtrack, then you know one of my favorite songs about Pablo Picasso. So if you get that joke, please laugh in the chat. And we got Val SF, I can't read this morning. Val SWFL, howdy y'all, nice to see you, Val, welcome. I don't know if I've seen you here before, so welcome. And I'll say, even if you don't have a question, if you just want to say hi, if you want to say shalom, if you just want to say, hey, how you doing, throw that into the chat as well. And so I think Noah64 gets my reference to the Repo Man soundtrack and a great song about Pablo Picasso. So, and it's true, in fact. I don't know that that's true. You know, I'm sure he ticked off somebody at some point. But in any case, really glad that you're here. Say hi, say howdy. Just let us know where you're from. I'm always interested to see where people are coming in from. I know Noah64, I think, is coming in from Colorado. We get people from the East Coast and the West Coast and other countries, which is kind of cool. And just really grateful for the people who come here to learn with me on a weekly or sometimes a couple times weekly basis. We used to do 2 times a week. Holidays kind of hijacked that, and those holidays ended this week. So maybe we'll get back into more live streams next week. So just really wanted to celebrate with you all today. The Jewcurious School, which if you haven't heard of it, it's an online-only school, which means you go to a website and you log in. And it's there's a members only thing. There is a little tuition involved just to help me run the school, and for members of the school, you have access to weekly live Parashat HaShavua study. That is, we study the Torah portion of the week live, and if you can't make it to the live session, that's cool. We record all of them and put them in the members area. We also have a lot of what I call mini courses. It's like 3 or 4 lessons about a particular topic, taking a deep dive. If you're just coming into the beginning of this and you want sort of an introductory level educational experience, we have a complete introduction to Judaism class. It's 26 video lessons. We also do have audio lessons. Some of our students watch the videos. Some of our students listen to the audio tracks. There are MP3s there. You listen to those in your car if you want to on the way to work or wherever it is you go. You do you. No questions asked. But we have ways to interact. We have a full introduction to Judaism class, a lot of topical courses where we take a deep dive into specific topics like prayer and Jewish thought about God and Jewish life cycles like bar mitzvahs and funerals and stuff like that. My favorite component is the community. And from the beginning, I'm like, okay, I'm going to put a bunch of video lessons out here, but I think it'd be cool if there was a way for students to talk to each other. So I tacked onto the site like an old school bulletin board, right? Those kind of forum pages thinking, okay, we'll see if this works. I don't know. Sometimes you start a forum and crickets, right? So, or if you ever started a Facebook group or something like that, it's just crickets. People don't talk to each other. They're just there for the learning and not for, socializing. But I've been overwhelmed by the response to this community forum. Like, people get in there, they introduce themselves, they tell their stories. They say, hey guys, I'm nervous because I'm going to a synagogue for the first time this week and I don't know if they're going to like me. And people just come in and support each other and answer each other's questions. And I get in there sometimes too. This week I asked a question of the week. It's been a while. I know it's been more than a week. But I put out a question of the week. This week's question is, what Jewish book has had the greatest impact on you? Besides the Torah. The Torah is like an easy one. So if there's a Jewish book that you've read that has had a big impact on you, what is it? So other people can learn from that. And so that's just been one of the great joys of my life, is putting this school together, learning with people, but also just getting to know people and seeing the Genesis, kind of topical this week, the Genesis and evolution. Sometimes people think Genesis and evolution don't go together, but I'm fine with it. The Genesis and evolution of a really kind, caring, learning community of people who support each other, of people who are nice to each other, which you don't always find in online communities. And I can't tell you how grateful I am that just to realize and look back and realize we've been doing this together for a year. And just dozens of students have come in, shared their stories. Some have, come in and left. You learn for a little while, then you go someplace else. That's fine. That's school, right? But we also have people who've been there from the very beginning who are in the school still. That was our beta that we launched with almost no content. I just said, okay, here's when I'm going to be teaching. I hope you show up, and I'll put the recordings out there. And then week after week, people came 1, 2, 3 classes a week, and all of those classes are recorded, and now there's over, I think, 120 lessons. If you put the Introduction to Judaism together with the weekly Torah study that we do, together with the mini courses, there's 120 plus different, videos, 30 to 60 minutes long, about different Jewish topics, with, again, the full audio track and some, downloadable text sheets and things like that. And so it's just been such a treat to do this with everybody. Just want to stop, acknowledge that, tell you how grateful I am for that, and encourage you, if this is something you're thinking about, there's, if you're watching on Twitch, there's a link to it. If you get on my email list, I'm always sending out links to it just to see if it's right for you. And so not going to put the hard sell on you. The thing sells itself, in my opinion. So just check it out, see if it's right for you. You have 30 days to try it out risk-free, and that's all I'll say about that. So with that, I want to see who is in. I'm turning the music down, so I'm not getting all these little pretzel chat updates. This is good radio. Hit the pause button on the sound. Going back to the chat. And I'm looking. Got Triggers and Viv in here. Triggers and Viv. Oh, I'm so glad you're here, Triggers. I want to show you something. First, I'm going to check the multi-chat just to see who's coming in from other places. Oh my goodness, already we've got Brandy Pecora is coming in from YouTube. Good morning, Brandy. Bud Rod too. Happy birthday, Jewcurious. Fantastic. I know it's been a little bit more than a year since this whole Jewcurious name caught on. We over a year ago we started this podcast, and it's been a while since we've had a new podcast episode. But I've already got plans. But there was a special piece of equipment that I was missing to do new podcast episodes. And some of you who've been following this for a little while now, so K Dixie, all right, K Dixie kicked in. So for people who've been watching this live stream for a while, you know that maybe a couple months ago I had some technical difficulties. My technical piece of equipment called a preamp just jumped out on me. Right, it was the little place where you plug in the USB cord. Just that little jack just broke. And so it's actually a Zoom H6 hand recorder, but I use it as a preamp for this channel. And so that broke. So the sound quality has downgraded a little bit on these live streams, but it also made it impossible for me to use it to record high quality sound podcast episodes. Like I could make junky sound podcast episodes, but who needs those? So the preamp gave up its ghost. Woo! It is kind of close to that season. And I thought, okay, I'm going to save up. People have been sending me contributions through this site, sending me contributions in other forms. And lo and behold, ta-da! We got a new preamp from Amazon. Just got it in today. And so the good news is we got a new preamp. And so that means that, we're going to have some more podcast episodes coming soon, some new interviews that I can make now that I have the right sound equipment. Also, the sound quality is going to improve a little bit on this live stream. I just haven't had time to plug it in yet. So just want to let you know it got here, and I saw it, made me think of it. Trig has really been encouraging me and helping me out to get this. So I just want to, Trig, this one's for you. We got our preamp finally, and maybe I'll take a little pause from Mario to install it and see how that works, or maybe I'll just have it done by the next thing. Let's see. Val SFO says, howdy y'all. Nawa64 gets my joke about my favorite Pablo Picasso song. Vanna70 says, congrats from Germany. Emily Kowal says, Rabbi, your shirt is metal. It is, thank you. It's Metallica. I'm a fan, I have to say. Emily Kowal says, hi from chilly North Illinois. My goodness. Is it chilly places? It's been like in the 90s in California. Now like half the valley is on fire. So my heart goes out to people who are evacuating right now. It hasn't hit us yet. Let's see. Boker Tov L'Kulam says, KG Wilcox. Let's see who else is KG. I woke up groggy this morning. I was like, Shema, Baruch, Ashrei, Modad. That's the one. Very good. Sort of running through all the different prayers. What do you say first? Happy birthday to Rabbi John, the Jewcurious School. Thanks, Kathy. So today's not my birthday. My birthday is later in time, but I'm excited about it. So it's it's my real birthday is going to be on Sunday. So I got my wife's got like a whole day planned for me. Yamalowitz says, Rabbi, car fixed? Yes, Rabbi's falling apart. Broke his preamp, broke his car. No, last Friday when I was on, I said my car was in the shop. It was all just routine maintenance stuff. It is all taken care of. Mwah. Thanks to Jesse at Universal Service Station here in Burbank. Get no money from the Universal Service people, but I'll send all business Jesse's way. Because, man, if you can find an honest mechanic who works within walking distance, like a 10-minute walk from your house, that's good living. So Triggers and Bib says, woot woot. Woohoo, got the preamp in. Yay, preamp. Everybody's excited about my sound not being terrible anymore. Very nice. The school got a preamp for its birthday. I love that. Thank you, Bud Rod, too, from YouTube. So maybe we'll install this a little bit later. Maybe I'll wait till the next broadcast. But in any case, just thank you all for being here to celebrate with me this morning. And let's see what else is going on here. Got a few viewers. Let's get down to some serious business of having some serious fun. So we're about to turn on our friend Mario. Before we do, I just want to notify people of some things that have been happening. Lately, I've been putting out this is something I haven't done in a while, and that's upload recorded videos to YouTube. Been doing some live streaming for a few months now pretty regularly, but I haven't put out any sort of like short form learning videos, and I just put out 2, and there's another one coming today. I put out a video on my YouTube channel. What I did was I went through a lot of the surveys that I've collected. A lot of people, when they join my email list, will fill out a survey. I just like to get to know people who are learning with me. And I ask, what are some of your biggest frustrations on your journey, on your spiritual journey, or in your journey of learning about Judaism? And I went back through the survey, and a lot of people have some common concerns, and I came up with like 15 different topics. And the first one that kind of bubbled to the top of people's frustrations was, this notion that perhaps, or have heard from other people, that Orthodox Judaism or the Orthodox Jewish community is the only real way to be Jewish, or it's the only, if you're converting to Judaism, it's the only legitimate way of converting to Judaism. And I have an opinion about that, and I'm not going to tell you what it is. You probably guessed from other broadcasts if you've been here before, but I made a whole video about that. It's on YouTube right now, and so check that out. Some people have found it very helpful, just kind of alleviating their own concerns. My job here is to make your path easier. Well, not maybe easy is not the right word, because the path should be a little complicated sometimes, but just to help remove obstacles for you. And so frustrations that I've had and that I've overcome, I share with people. Things that I didn't know that I learned, I share with people. So on my YouTube channel, there's a new video about, how to deal with that bias that some communities have, that there's only one right way to do Judaism, and you'll find out my full opinion there. I also put on a little thing I'm starting called Jewish Book Talk. So I've taken it on to do more reading of Jewish books. Like, I spent a lot of time just studying Torah in order to teach Torah, but I found that there's a lot of more modern books out there that have been really influential on people's thought that I haven't read yet. For example, Milton Steinberg's As a Driven Leaf. So many people cite this as like a book that inspired them to become a rabbi, or inspired them to study Mishnah or Talmud, and I hadn't read it yet. I was like too busy reading other stuff. So I sat down and I read it, and I did a full book review, a video book review. It's like making videos for people who read, I guess. So I made a video book review of that. That's on YouTube, and a little bit later today, after this broadcast, I'm going to upload a new video that is kind of just a short Dvar Torah on this week's Torah portion. Just me sharing one idea I had about Parashat Breshit, this first Torah portion in the cycle of the Torah reading year. Let's see. Nawa64 says, frustrations, unresponsive rabbis. Not Rabbi John, Baruch Hashem. I know I'm not, I just want to say, I know I'm not perfect. There's times where people have reached out to me and I've said, oh, I have to do that later, or maybe they reach out over a holiday and it's not a holiday they observe, so they don't know why I'm not getting back to them. So that is one of the things that's listed, is like how to deal with, let's say I reached out to a rabbi and I never heard anything back. That's another video that I'm going to be making very soon, because that's a common frustration. Some people are worried. They're like, did I offend the rabbi? Am I not allowed to talk to a rabbi? That's not true. It's just most rabbis that I know are, they're, they're just super busy. It's like they probably get like 300 or 400 emails or 1,000 emails a day, like no joke. And so sometimes they aren't getting back to you, or sometimes they're so preoccupied with the concerns of their own community. Maybe it was a funeral that day, and so that happens. I'll talk more about that another time. So the Triggers and Gifts says, would you mind doing one on learning Hebrew, frustrations, and maybe guides for learning? Absolutely. So one thing, and I'm going to give more of a manifesto on this a little bit later for the students of the Jewcurious School, is we're going to be making a few changes to our regular lineup in the Jewcurious School. One is going to be in this new in year 2 of the Jewcurious School. I can't believe I'm saying that. Year 2 of the Jewcurious School, there's going to be more resources for learning Hebrew. Like, we put out a lot of topical stuff and a lot of teaching on traditions and customs and law, but there's really not a lot on there for learning Hebrew, and that's something that I'm committed to in this year, is just completely revamping that. So, and I've said this before, I've been wanting to do it for a long time, but in the coming year, there's going to be less of the regular, like, new topics, but there's going to be a lot more support in the forum. There's going to be there's going to be more resources on Hebrew learning. So that's my commitment. Is it going to be tomorrow? No. Well, tomorrow's Shabbos anyway. So is it going to be right away? Is it going to be all there in the next week? No. It's going to be kind of like how we built the school over the last year, a little bit at a time. And so, we'll learn the alphabet together. We'll learn what sounds the different letters make. We'll learn some of the vowels. We'll learn, well, not some of the vowel sounds, all of the vowel sounds, because you deserve that, and you can't go around with half your vowels, right? So we're going to learn the consonant and vowel sounds, so that, it's maybe you're not going to be fluent in Hebrew. That's not really what I'm teaching for at this level at this point, but at least decoding, so that when you open up a prayer book, you can make those sounds, right? Not just by rote memory, but by sounding those things out, and then just that decoding gives you a whole new level of access. And that was like all the Hebrew I knew for years before I really started learning for, let's say, vocabulary and comprehension. So that's going to be one of our big pushes in the Jewcurious School, is learning Hebrew, learning the alphabet, learning it phonetically, so that when you encounter new prayers, you can make those sounds with your face, and that allows a new kind of participation in rituals and ceremonies and services, and then that from there you begin to be able to understand the Torah a little bit better, especially a lot of the commentary and learning that from the classical rabbis is really like down at a fine-grained level. They're like interpreting one word and sometimes even one letter at a time, and unpacking a whole world of meaning from a single letter or a single word or a single phrase. And learning the Hebrew helps you understand that in ways that you can't when you don't quite have that skill. So that's going to be a big focus in the coming year. So that's my commitment to you. Be patient. It's going to happen over the course of time. I also have been hoping to partner with another teacher, so that if you want to take some extra time outside of the school, there's a teacher that I reached out to a while ago. Haven't made that happen yet, but want to make that happen very soon. So Ariel Bird is here. Says good Shabbos. So thank you. Good Shabbos to you, Ariel Bird. Good to see you. Let's see, KG Wilcox says, my sponsoring rabbi wasn't a pulpit rabbi, so she was more accessible. That's true. Sometimes rabbis, when they're in congregations, are less accessible, just because congregations, have a lot of demands. And I'm not gonna lie to you. Like, over the last few months, I've been more and more involved in the congregation, and it's taken a lot of my time. But I've really have been dedicated to staying a teacher and a guide in the Jewcurious School as well. I'll just say, insomnia helps. So. I'm not complaining. Like, I'd rather have this life than any other life I can imagine. So with that, I think it's about time for Fun Friday. I haven't seen any questions in here yet. If you have a question, I highly encourage you to put question marks in it. It makes it a little bit easier for me to identify the questions in the chat. If you ask a question and I just miss it, I don't answer it, or I don't acknowledge it at all, maybe paste it back in there a second time. A lot of times people who are in the chat will say, hey, Rabbi, there was a question up there, and they'll copy and paste it. So I'll answer it as best and quickly as I possibly can. But in the meantime, I got my ear goggles on, and I'm ready to go, because at the boards, is a man we call Mario. Mario, what are you doing there, buddy? Wake up. Mario's just sleeping. Talk about cognitive dissonance. We have Mario is a chef in a clean white chef's outfit in a place that looks kind of schmutzy. I don't know how he's going to keep it white like that. But yeah, this is the Bowser Kingdom. So it looks like Bowser is quite a good leader. This place is completely destroyed. Let's see, got a question here. KG Wilcox, how big is the Pasadena Jewish Center sanctuary? There was massive reverberation like a cathedral. Yeah, so that's something we're working on too. I'll say, hey, Radio Angel's here. Hi, everyone. So if you haven't, if you're curious about what I was teaching about during the High Holy Days, or if you're just curious about the synagogue where I work at a place called Pasadena Jewish Temple and Center. I'm kind of their interim rabbi. Have been for a few months now while they're sort of between permanent rabbis. And I had the great honor and joy of co-leading the High Holy Day services this year. And now all sort of 5 of the kind of main services are online. So if you go on YouTube, it's not on my channel, but if you go on YouTube, there's a channel for the Pasadena, as in Pasadena, California, Jewish Temple and Center. And there's 5 videos up there, and those 5 videos are the complete services for Erev Rosh Hashanah Day 1, Rosh Hashanah Day 2, Kol Nidre, which is Erev Yom Kippur, and Yom Kippur morning. And in there are sort of my 5 big sermons. Now these services are like 2 to 5 hours long, and the full services are on there. We're going to pretty soon edit it down, so you will have excerpts of some of the songs and just videos of just the sermons soon. Still kind of working there. But if you want to hear the sermons that I gave on the High Holidays, just go to those services. Don't just skip to me. Like I'm not the most important person there. We have an incredible cantor, an incredible davening team that supports the whole service musically. So check out some of the prayers and songs. And then if you scroll ahead till there's just me, like a big dude in a white robe, talking for an extended period of time, those are my sermons. And they're usually like kind of right in the middle, near, sort of in the latter half or in the middle of the services. And you can hear, I'm going to say altogether, I probably gave close to like 2 hours worth of sermons. They were a little bit long. I'm not going to sugarcoat it for you. But I have it, if I put all my sermons together, there's at least a feature-length film of this guy talking. So a little bit embarrassed about that, but that's okay. It was important Torah. I wanted to teach it, and people were pleased with it. So check that out. Who is that guy in the white suit and shoes? So that's the thing. Like a lot of people wear white on the holidays, and some people like I'll wear a kittle. Like I don't have a white suit. I'm a big guy in a white suit. I would just look like, I don't know, you're being attacked by a mattress or something. I'm not a white suit person, so I just wear like a white robe over my usual dark suits. But some people just go all in and they have white suits, and so I don't know exactly who you're talking about because there were a few of them. So there are a few people in white suits and white shoes. That is a look that I haven't been able to pull off yet. He seemed official. Ari, the Torah scrolls. Yeah, there might have been this guy I'm thinking about. I don't want to like name names on this channel just because I don't have their explicit permission. But there's a guy there. I think he was wearing like a white suit and white shoes. He was probably one of our gabbis, which is somebody who is a kind of helps out during the Torah service. Like he makes sure that people are reading from the right part of the scroll and saying the words correctly. So I think that's probably who we were talking about. But yeah, so so again, I don't want to name his name because I don't have permission to, but he's a great helper. I'll say that, and he's very dedicated to the temple. So Triggers about okay, I have to go. Love and shalom to everyone. Happy birthday to you, Rabbi, and to the school. Best things to come into my life. Oh wow, that's really I don't know what to say. Thank you. I'll just say thank you. So it's been my joy as well. So KG Wilcox says, what is his function? Yeah, I think if I'm thinking of the same person, it's probably Gabbai Sheni. So Gabbai, or Gabbai, I don't know bring in how you pronounce it, is sort of the, maybe sometimes the word used is sextant. Maybe there's a Catholic equivalent of that. He's like not a clergy person, but who is sort of a dedicated volunteer who's there and make sure that the Torah scrolls are handled correctly. When people are reading, the Gabbis will follow along in a text beside them to make sure that they're pronouncing the Hebrew words correctly, or if somebody's doing a reading and they get stuck or they can't see the word right or they forget the tune, the Gabbis will prompt them. So they're very helpful in that regard. And also Torah scrolls are heavy, and sometimes when you pick up a Torah scroll, when you do Hagba, that's like picking up a Torah scroll, it's helpful to have a spotter. And so that's another very important function they have, so that we don't, God forbid, drop the Torah scroll on the ground, because then then there's fasting that happens. So that's the master of ceremonies in Anglican liturgy. Probably, yeah. Very cool. All right, Triggers, and I'll echo K Dixie, Triggers and Viv, have a lovely day. And this is dedicated to you, Trig. This is Trig actually helped me out with this, so and a lot of people have helped out with this, but I just want to give Trig an honor there. So let's see what we're going to do in the Bowser Kingdom. Okay, there's some golden keys, and okay, is it gold? Oh hey, I think I broke something. There's something over here. Oh, it's a coin, but it might be a power moon. No such luck, right? I'm gonna leave those there just in case, or maybe not. It is just practice. Because Rabbi, will PJ and TC live stream anytime soon? So it's thanks for that. It was like a whole year-long process, or probably more than a year in the making, of getting the system. Well, before getting the system installed, the community having a discussion and deciding whether it wanted to do it, because some synagogues do it, some synagogues don't. Some synagogues interpret Jewish law in such a way that live streaming is a no-no. Many Reform synagogues, conservative synagogues, you won't see it in Orthodox synagogues very much, or any that I know of, but conservative synagogues are sort of mixed. I don't know the proportions because it's kind of a new technology, but there are many conservative synagogues that are live streaming it. Yes, it's electronics, but it's sort of there. It's installed and it's run passively. Like it's set on a timer, and we use timers for all sorts of things on Shabbat. It's set on a timer. It's managed remotely. Nobody in the synagogue is adjusting the camera angle or fooling with it, and it's run by a company outside the synagogue over the internet, magic of science. And so we live stream the services, but as a part of the passive streaming experience, it also gets archived, and so we have access to it. And so the synagogue decided that they were okay with live streaming, and that live streaming being recorded, and so just got it ready in time for the High Holy Days. Some people are like, I don't want to go up in the Bima to bless the Torah scroll because I don't want to be on camera. Some people actually, and I heard this conversation between two friends in a class that I was teaching there recently. Somebody was like, ugh, live streaming, feh. And the other person who was sitting next to her was like, well, I broke my leg right before High Holiday services and couldn't come, and it was a godsend to be able to tune in and witness the service and participate remotely. And so that it was sort of two sides of that coin. So anyway, we got it done. There were a lot of homebound people who wouldn't have been able to be a part of the service otherwise. So the big test among the membership was the High Holy Days. Now we're kind of in discussions as to whether we're going to do it on a regular basis. Some bar mitzvah families especially have been really keen on this idea because there are people who can't, family members from across the country or across the globe who can't be at the bar mitzvah now can see what's going on, or the bat mitzvah, as the case may be. And so we're now figuring out sort of what schedule and regularity. Our first test was the High Holy Days, and now the High Holy Days videos are up there. And we have a lot of, KG Wilcox says we have a lot of college students turning in as well. So when I'll make this commitment. When I know, you'll know. And when I know that we're having regular live streaming services, I'll make sure you know what the schedule is, because I'm terribly curious about that myself. All right, so Mario is now up in Bowser's Castle. This feels like a boss battle arena, kind of. And it's starting to rumble. Oh, no, dragon. This guy does not look like my friend. kind of moving things around here so I can see the full screen. See what's going on in the multi. Oh, I was trying to play with the multi chat. Okay, if you're tuning in from YouTube or Facebook, I'm gonna catch this later because I gotta see what's going on with this dragon. Okay. Okay, dragon. Oh, killed by the dragon. Wow, this never happens in my show. What, getting killed by a dragon? I hope not. Let's see. Radio Agent says, I would love to be able to tune into the live stream services sometime. Yeah, I think just while we're testing the equipment, it was sort of a members only thing. That was I wanted people to see the high holidays, but we're just not there yet. But pretty soon. When I know, you'll know, because I'm excited about that too. So let me go back to the multi-chat here. Emily Kowal says, Shalom, great, thanks. Emily Kowal says, my synagogue Reform streamed high holiday services, and some conservative synagogues in our area stream their high holiday services too. Yeah, it's a growing trend. It's a way, and some people are worried that like, oh, well, if they stream the services, then like who's going to come? And they're worried that it's going to affect attendance. And to other rabbis that I've talked to, a friend of mine, Rabbi Miriam Turlinchamp, one of the early guests on the Jewcurious School, they've been doing live streaming for a little while, and she said what they found was it didn't really have any kind of negative impact on attendance. It wasn't like, oh, I was going to go to shul that day, but I could just live stream, so I stayed at home. It's more like people who couldn't have come to shul at all, couldn't have come to services at all, were now able to see what was going on. And so it's had sort of a net, I'll say, positive benefit on people learning and getting something out of the service, which I think is a good thing. All right, now we're going to run from dragon. Lazy dragon. Okay, jumpy. Oh man. Jump. And jump on his face. Okay, that did not work. I know there's a heart in here somewhere. Thanks, I needed that. No, go away. Okay, hit the dragon. Now, desperately need another heart. This is a hard level, so we're going to be here a little while, guys. Vivian Gray says, let's see, kill the dragon, got some people under the dragons, let's see. Budrad 2 says it was Bim Bomb that had prayer videos. Tried to post a playlist link, but that's okay. It's just keep trying. I don't know. Sometimes YouTube is weird about not letting you post links. If I see that, I'll post it later. Or just look up Bim Bomb or go on YouTube. It was a great resource. They're not making new videos, unfortunately, but they had been making videos for a long time. Really high quality stuff. I highly recommend it. Type in Bim Bomb, BIMBAM, and prayer into your YouTube search bar, and you'll find some great resources there. Vivian Gray asks, Q, within the conservative movement, would it be breaking the Shabbat to drive, or is that just orthodox? So it's complicated. I'll say it this way. With the suburbanization of America circa 1950s and 60s, post-war era, a lot of synagogues were being, well, let's say it differently. A lot of people were moving into the suburbs, but the synagogues that they went to were in the city. They didn't live close to their synagogue. This had to do, well, I'll say it had to do with white flight. It had to do with all the different sort of dynamics of suburbanization. So either people were moving out of the city where their synagogue was to get cheaper, more affordable housing and better schools for their kids and whatnot, far away from their synagogues, or they're building synagogues in suburbs where the people lived in much more dispersed areas. And so they found that, okay, if they were strict on not driving, I mean, it's like Jewish law, you know, we don't ride and we don't combust. And having a car involves, driving a car involves at least one of those things. Less and less the combustion these days. However, the conservative movement came out with a tshuva, a responsum, like a legal opinion that, you know, saying that if the only way that you would be able to attend synagogue services and celebrate Shabbat with a community as opposed to just sitting at home by your lonesome was to drive there, then there would be sort of a, I don't know what's the right word, kind of a provisional permission to drive, in the sense that if you drove to shul, we weren't going to be like, get out of here, feh. So that sort of opened the door to people driving to synagogues, which helped maintain synagogue attendance and Jewish community in the changing climate of urban planning after the Second World War. And so, does that mean that, you know, driving is cool with the conservative movement? Not necessarily. It's just sort of understood that that's how a lot of people have to live their lives, and so we've handled it in a way that reduces shaming people, which I'm firmly against. You know, there are Orthodox communities where people will drive and then park a couple blocks away and then walk the rest of the way, and that's how they're doing their Judaism, and that's fine. They're not doing, if not driving, you know, sometimes it's a health issue, sometimes it's an accessibility issue. There are Jews who drive to synagogue, and I agree with the position paper that says it's better that you should drive to synagogue than to not go to synagogue at all. I would imagine in the Orthodox communities, it's more of like, you know, they know there are people driving. They don't endorse it. They don't promote it. They don't necessarily build a bigger parking lot for you. I know there's a lot of Chabad houses that will on Saturdays like put a chain across the entrance to their parking lot so that they're not seen as encouraging driving. So it's a thing that in America people drive, and I wish that weren't true. And it's actually less and less true as people are reorganizing their lives around not having cars. Thank God, because of climate change and things like that. So I'll say it's driving is less done and not recognized or endorsed in Orthodox communities. And the conservative movement sort of acknowledged that that's a reality of suburban life. It's not encouraged that you drive, but it's encouraged that you attend synagogue, however it takes you to get there. So I hope that's that complicated answer is somewhat helpful. Let's see. K-Dixie says, Ari, Mario Music, composer Shigeru Miyamoto and the Roots play the Super Mario Brothers theme. Let's see. Emily says, I spent Shabbat with Orthodox friends who didn't drive, but we had a conservative shul by my work that people drove to. I think it depends. Kate Dixie says, live services help people with health or mobility challenges be able to see the services and feel less isolated. Bud Rod said, is a playlist Jewish prayers and blessings, intro to Tefillah or something like that. Very good, Bud Rod. Thank you for sharing that resource. Ariel Bird says, I often stream services from the Central Synagogue, but I noticed that they only live stream the afternoon services only during Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur, which was surprising and a little disappointing. So, you know, that's a lot of those kind of decisions are made by committee, and it's a discussion of the people in that community. And, you know, sometimes when decisions are made by community, people who aren't on that committee don't understand the outcome. But people are usually on the committee because they're, you know, they have the most stake in what's going on. So I did notice that I don't know if that we live streamed our Kol Nidre services alternatively. All right, my focus is on beating this dragon. I will answer questions in a moment. Okay, Rawr, angry dragon. I know it's possible because I've beaten this level before. It's just gonna take a while. Bear with me while Chef Mario runs in circles and fights a dragon. Boosh. Whoop. Whoop. Oh! These curvy ones get you every time. Okay, up on his face, up on his face, up on his face. Hat. Hat. And hat. And ground pound. Boosh. And I gotta get off his face. Okay, only lost one heart doing that. Ground pound this. Whoop. Dodge that. Fall on your face, dragon. Oh, did that. Okay, now there's more of these. Jump, jump, jump. Hat, jump, hat, hat. Aww. Okay, I'll get him next time. Let's see if I can find another heart place. Alright, fall on your face, chump. Alright, this one is an easy in, except for those guys. Go away. That's 2. We can do this. Your mouth, the God's ears, hat face. Oh, hey, another possible heart. Haha. Whoa. On your face. Jumpy, 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 jump. Okay, I need another heart. I do not like my chances. So close. Bud Rod, is there a site where I can improve my prayers in Hebrew? There are a lot of videos uploaded. I found out, oh, hey, what's this guy all about? Oh, I know what I could do. I'm going to buy an extra heart. Maybe that'll help. Oh, you are. No, thank you, skeleton face. How did you know I stink at Mario? Alright, once more into the breach, my friends. If you're just tuning in, welcome to the Jewcurious Show. This is Fun Friday, where we have fun getting killed by dragons. And you can ask Jewish questions while we do it. Alrighty. Hopefully with 6 hearts. Vivian Gray says, I'm new to this site and very anxious to continue my learning. Very cool. Welcome. Glad you're here. Let's see. I'll talk to you right after this dragon. Nerd. Do-do-do. Have a wonderful day, Trig. Do-do-do-do. Do-do-do-do. On your face, dragon. Up, up, up. Dragon face. Dragon face. Dragon face. Break the skull. And pound. Alright, got the first pound without losing a single heart out of 6. I like our chances, gang. Don't want to jinx it. Don't want to get sloppy. Dragon face. Dragon face. His face is a dragon, as is his dragon face. We can do this, no doubt. Do 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 do. Whoop, whoop, lady things. How do you even breathe those things? This dragon defies physics. Boop, ba doo 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 doo. Really, no way to not get hit by those things. All right, catch you next time, buddy. Doo-doo. Serpentine. Just pure luck. Oh, it feels good. Multi-moon. Now we gotta fix our broken down spaceship. Whew. All right, if you're just tuning in, welcome to the Jewcurious Show. We beat dragons and then we answer Jewish questions. So let's see whatever questions people have. We've been talking about live streaming. We've been talking about Hebrew. We've been talking about driving on Shabbat. I'll say I do drive on Shabbat. I don't drive anywhere. This is sort of a compromise. A lot of people who drive kind of make a compromise with it, in the sense that we'll drive because the provision is, you can drive if that's the only way that you can make it to a synagogue. That if we make that concession, we don't make a blanket concession. Oh, as long as we're driving to synagogue, we'll drive anywhere. No. Usually, if people will drive to the synagogue on Shabbat, for example, they'll say, "I'll drive to the synagogue, but I won't go to like the mall, or I won't go to birthday parties." Like they'll drive to the synagogue and to Seudat Mitzvah, or something like a Shabbat meal at somebody's house. But it's sort of reserved for holy occasions, and from the rest, there's no driving. And some people will say, "Oh, that's bogus. You're just making excuses." But for many people, their spiritual practice is, yes, in order to be celebrating Shabbat with the community, I'll drive to the synagogue or I'll drive to somebody's house for a Shabbat dinner or a Shabbat lunch, but nowhere else. And that's kind of my family's philosophy. So let's see, like we don't go to kids' birthday parties on Shabbat, for example, and people just know that. People know that if they invite our kids to their birthday parties and the parties on Shabbat, we'll say thank you and maybe send them a gift or something. But that's just our family day, that we don't do other stuff. And so because of that, a lot of our circle of our kids' friends who also have a similar practice, all kids' birthday parties are on Sundays. So that's helpful. I mean, it takes a community to just support these kinds of holy activities. Tater Tot 939 says, "I know the Orthodox interpretation of halakha involves not using electricity on Shabbat. What's the conservative view on that?" As in many things, it's sort of mixed, in the sense that we follow the same Shulchan Aruch that they do, just have maybe some different interpretations of it, in the sense that there are conservative Jews who will not. And by use electricity, it's more like initiate electricity, in the sense of flipping a switch to open or close an electrical circuit. The reason being that observing Shabbat came along long before the popular use of electricity, and when electricity came on the scene, people said, "Ow, it burns when you touch it," and so it must be fire. And because we don't start a fire on Shabbat, we also don't ignite new fires on Shabbat or put fires out. We also don't use electrical circuits by like turning a switch on or off. And so any device that runs on electricity, people who consider electricity to be fire won't turn that device on or off. Now, they might have timers in their house. They might have their coffee pot on a timer, or they might have cholent in a crock pot that they start before Shabbat. That's a different issue slightly. Or they might, let's say if they want to touch light switches, before Shabbat they'll turn on the light in the bathroom, but then turn off all the lights in their bedrooms, so that they can go in their bedroom and go to sleep without the light being on. But there's light in the hallway, so they don't get lost or bump into anything. The bathroom light is left on overnight, maybe in the main living area, or they might have switches on a timers that turns down the living room lights at 8 o'clock or 10 o'clock or whenever. So they make provisions for that. There are other interpretations, and I go by my teacher, Rabbi Elliot Dorff, who is one of the greatest living scholars of Jewish law in my mind, also a PhD in philosophy, who does a lot of Jewish law when it comes, does a lot of interpretation of Jewish law when it comes to science and engineering and medical things. and he says, electricity is not fire in the sense that fire consumes whatever it is on, basically. Like, there's a log on fire, there's a candle wick on fire. Electricity doesn't necessarily, except maybe on a very subatomic, unobservable level. Let's say electricity passing through a tungsten filament, in the case of a light bulb, or over a copper wire, doesn't destroy or consume the copper wire that it's flowing through. It's just sort of exciting the electrons along that copper wire, and so it does. So unlike fire, electricity doesn't consume what it is touching. It doesn't create a cinder, and it doesn't make smoke, unless you're doing it wrong, right? If you've got something electrical that's smoking and throwing off cinders and is burning, that's a fire. But electricity per se is not fire. And furthermore, he interprets that when you open or close a circuit that allows electrons to kind of get excited and pass through it, it is akin to tying a temporary knot. So the question is, can you tie your shoes on Shabbat? Like, you're not supposed to make complicated knots, or like, sailor knots, knots that are not intended to be undone. Like, you're not allowed to make knots in rope that have a permanent or semi-permanent nature, but you're allowed to tie your shoes. You're allowed to tie a temporary knot that's easy to undo, like your shoelaces. And so, according to Rabbi Dorff, electricity is not fire, and operating an electrical circuit, like turning a light switch on or off, is like tying a temporary knot, because it's easy to do and it's easy to undo, and it's like tying your shoes. And so that's kind of the interpretation that I follow. Now, I try to avoid using my phone unless it's like my family calling and I think there might be an emergency, but I don't use a lot of electronic devices on Shabbat, and to just try to make that, because I use electronic devices wall to wall the rest of the week. I mean, I'm teaching online, for crying out loud. So I like to take a little break from that as best as possible. I like to get caught up in my reading and things like that. So, sometimes I'll take advantage of electricity passively. I'll turn on light switches. I'll turn off light switches. Conserve electricity. My AC's on a thermostat, so I don't have to bother with that too much. Kate Dixie says, what do you think of dimmer switches? They can lessen or increase the brightness of lights, but not turn on or off. It's about the same. I mean, if you think that electricity is fire, then it's like, then a dimmer switch would be a little bit like the level on a gas stove, in the sense that you're not allowed to either ignite or extinguish or adjust fire. Like, I can't turn my burner on my stove from high to low, for example. And so if you interpret that electricity is like fire, then a dimmer switch would be like that. However, just affecting that flow with relative ease is like opening or closing the circuit, or half opening or half closing the circuit. I know there are resistors involved and things like that. Yeah, so I think you need to figure out what basis you want to make your decisions on. A lot of it has to do with the community that you're a part of, because that way it's not just the science, it's also who do you want to hang out with, who do you want to associate with. Like, you may scientifically understand that electricity is not fire, but if the people you want to celebrate Shabbat with are uncomfortable with electricity, you have to decide whether you would rather use your electricity or be with those people. And a lot of times the people that you're with supersede, let's say, rational understandings of electrophysics. So that's my opinion on that. Emily Quall shares, I love when people share resources here. Vivian, I had luck with Chabad's app with prayers. It has them both in Hebrew and English. That's a good resource. Rabbi, can you talk a little bit about the concept of the Shabbat Goy? Okay. Again, now the questions are flooding in now that I beat that dragon. And then here's another one that we'll come back to. Ezra Seville, why do we follow the Talmud Bavli instead of the Talmud Yerushalmi? So two good questions. I want to answer the easier, quicker one first. Trying to decide which one that is. So we'll just go with Emily Kowal asked the question, Rabbi, can you talk about the concept of the Shabbat Goy? It's a sort of a cultural concept, the Shabbat Goy or the Shabbos Goy. Goy is kind of a loaded word because the word Goy means nation, or Goyim means nations, but it's also come to be a pejorative term for a Gentile or for a non-Jew. And so I'm careful about using that word. But it also, sometimes we call ourselves a goy echad, a singular nation. So it can just mean, it's one of those words that, the meaning kind of depends on the stink that you put on it. So the Shabbos goy is this idea that in communities where somebody wanted to observe the Shabbat and follow the rules and not break any of the restrictions, they would have a non-Jewish person who would do things for them so that they didn't have to do those things. Like, hey, Shabbos goy, turn my lights on, or hey, make my coffee, or whatever. Or hey, run my business while I take a day off from the business. And throughout Jewish law, categorically, the Shabbos goy in the traditional cultural understanding of it is forbidden. Meaning, according to Jewish law and Hilchot Shabbat, you're not allowed to ask a non-Jew to do something for you on Shabbat that you can't do yourself on Shabbat. The law is very clear on this. Are there some wiggles and interpretations on the margins and things like that? Possibly. For example, we have a lot of non-Jewish custodians work at our synagogue, and the idea is, they do things like, plunge out the toilets, replace the paper towels, turn lights on and off, futz with the air conditioner. They do things that many Jews in the congregation wouldn't want to do on Shabbat and rely on them to do it on Shabbat. The security guards at synagogues. Some synagogues have armed guards and they're carrying weapons, and whereas many in Jewish communities we don't carrying weapons on Shabbat is frowned upon. But for our security, we hire somebody else to do that. Is that making somebody a Shabbos goy? And the provision is that, okay, you're not allowed to come out and say, okay, turn this fire on for me right now, like while it's Shabbat. But you can make a contract with somebody that says, okay, a few days a week, your job is to make sure this building is warm, right? And if a person, enters into that arrangement and some of that work gets done on Shabbat, but you're not being specifically told to do something on Shabbat, then it's considered okay. And this may seem legalistic in ways that sometimes people are uncomfortable with about Judaism. However, what we're trying to do is honor the spirit of Shabbat, not ordering people to do stuff for us that we can't do for ourselves, but also have a warm building and have that person have a job and gainful employment. And so we figure out a way that we satisfy our earthly needs and our holy calling at the same time. And just because we're rational about it doesn't mean that Judaism is too legalistic or that whole kind of BS argument. Sorry to use harsh letters. Or for example, you can, as one of my teachers of this particular principle said, you can use sort of the passive-aggressive mother tactic. You don't say, hey, please turn on the heat for me, but you could say, are you cold? Is it cold in here or is it just me? Are you cold? Are you comfortable? And if that person says, no, hey, maybe, I'm a little chilly, I'll turn on the heat. They're turning on the heat for themselves, and you get the benefit of it. A great example is the cruise ship buffet. This is how she explained it to us. You're also not allowed to, cook on Shabbat or ask somebody to cook for, and you can't cook for another Jewish person on Shabbat, and you're not allowed to ask somebody to cook for a Jewish person on Shabbat. However, if you're on a cruise ship, or for Las Vegas or any place where there's a buffet, and the buffet will stipulate kosher, let's just say just scrambled eggs that were only cooked in a pot with other scrambled eggs, and no bacon was in there or anything like that. And so you can eat the scrambled eggs, but that the scrambled eggs were made that day. They were cooked on Shabbat. But if it's not like a Jewish resort where mostly Jewish people are there, you can count, like statistically speaking, those eggs weren't made for you. They were made for everybody here. And most of the people who are going to eat those eggs are not Jewish. So they weren't made for my sake alone or personally. And so you can eat the eggs that were cooked for other people. A lot of times people will have caterers on Shabbat, and if the caterer doesn't, woe betide the synagogue where the caterer doesn't drink coffee, right? Because you can make the case that the caterer is making an entire carafe of coffee just so that they can have a cup of coffee, and everybody else gets to have some coffee too, and that's a nice thing. So there's a ways around it, but the general principle is you don't directly ask somebody to you don't directly ask somebody who's not Jewish to do something on Shabbat for you that you wouldn't do on Shabbat. So the Shabbos Goy is kind of and yet, we're a culture made up of humans, and so there have been times where people have, let's say, abused that law and said, I have a person in my house who I ask to do things. Is that right? No. Does it happen all the time? Possibly, because we're humans. So that's kind of the long version. Let me go back to the Talmud Bavli thing, because I get more questions in here. Talmud Bavli, Talmud Yerushalmi. So these are two different sort of editions or redactions of the Talmud. The Talmud is the combination of the Mishnah and commentary on the Mishnah, and there were two sort of sets of these that co-arose. One that was sort of initiated by the rabbis in the community of exile in Babylonia, or rather, not at the time of the first exile, but when the Assyrians conquered Judea, schmeiced the first temple, took us into exile in Babylonia. King Cyrus comes along, schmeices them, and then we get to go back to Jerusalem. A lot of people stayed behind, just because they'd been there for a generation or two. They'd started businesses, they'd made farms, they'd made a life there. They didn't stop being Jewish, but they made a life there and made sort of great academies of Jewish thought in exile. And so when it was time, when Cyrus says you can go back, a lot of people went back, but a lot of people stayed. And so in these two communities of learning, one in Jerusalem, or Yerushalayim, and one in Bavel, or Babylonia, these sort of twin centers of Jewish learning, a little bit like New York or in LA, or Chicago, Minneapolis, however you want to dissect it, tale of two cities, I guess. In these two different areas of learning where rabbis had established study halls and academies and things like that, different kind of schools of commentary grew up around the Mishnah. And one of those becomes the Talmud Bavli, or the Babylonian Talmud, and one becomes the Talmud Yerushalmi, sometimes called the Jerusalem or Palestinian Talmud, because that's what that whole area was called, up until about the late 1940s. So the question is, which has like a holier status, and why does most learning happen out of the Talmud Bavli, statistically speaking, and not the Talmud Yerushalmi? And my best example, I don't know if there's anybody out there in the business or lending world, is you might have noticed several years ago it was common for companies to be incorporated in Delaware. Like somebody starts a company, before they really take it big, go public or something like that, they'll start they'll incorporate in Delaware, and you're like, why Delaware? Like, I'm not knocking Delaware; it's a lovely place. Some of my best friends are from Delaware, but why? Like, it's like this smaller state, smaller economy. Why are corporations disproportionately established in Delaware? And it's just one of those sort of chain migration things where first one company did, then another company did, and then and as more companies were established in Delaware, the case law in Delaware commercial courts got thicker and thicker and thicker. And so the state of Delaware has a more robust code of commercial law than any other state. And so that's why companies establish themselves in Delaware, because business is more predictable. More areas of law have been discussed and are on the books. And similarly, there were just more rabbis who stayed behind in Babylonia than went back to Yerushalayim. And so the Babylonian Talmud is just thicker, right? The Talmud Yerushalmi is a smaller set of books. Babylonian Talmud is a much thicker set of books. There were just more discussions, more different issues addressed, and that's why the Babylonian Talmud is bigger, and it's become more authoritative because of that. Just because, in any legal system, the whichever set of books has the biggest recording of statutes and discussions and things like that is going to be the thing that people turn to, because it just answers more questions. And because of that, over time, it's evolved that more legal precedent, more study, just more everything when it comes to Jewish conversations and Jewish legal discussions stems from the Babylonian Talmud than the Talmud Yerushalmi. And that's just a fact of cultural evolution, and that's why. Now, the rabbis in Bavel considered the rabbis of Yerushalayim on sort of a higher spiritual plane. Like they deferred to, like in the time in Babylon, like if you read in the Talmud Bavli, you know, the rabbis would always be asking, oh, what do they do in Yerushalayim? Like, we know what we do in Babel, what do they do over there? And they would defer the honor to the rabbis of Judea. However, just because of these cultural phenomena that I'm talking about, more people have studied the Babylonian Talmud, which means, and the Babylonian Talmud itself is bigger, discusses more different topics, and that's just become sort of the authoritative of the two Talmuds. I hope that answers your question. Emily Kowal says Delaware has a particular tax regulations that are appealing to large companies. That helps too. I noticed many years ago when I relied more heavily on credit cards that more credit card companies were established. I forget what state, I think it was the state of Utah, or there was some state where it seemed like every time I got a credit card offer, it says, this is a such and such, like a Montana corporation. And I'm like, why is this? And I looked it up, and it's because whatever state, I don't remember exactly what state it was, but whatever state it was had the laxest usury laws, right? And so the credit card companies could charge more interest. So there's all sorts of sort of cultural phenomena that work themselves out in distinctive ways. Abel Collins says, your dragon roommate is not Jewish and has not been killed by Mario. I don't get it. Let's go up. Let's see. Rabbi John, what are some of your birthday wishes for this year? Oh man, that is a good question. Birthday wishes. I really want I want our school to do well. I want to get more. I want the for the Jewcurious School. I want the students who are there to feel appreciated, to feel fulfilled, to enjoy their learning together, to take risks, to branch off in their learning in different ways. So I want the students there to have a good experience. I want to bring more people kind of into the fold. That's why I've been doing some more YouTube videos and things like that lately. I want to make this school better. I just want to kind of build on what we've been doing. And I know you've asked me, I'll get to my personal wishes in a second. I've shared with some people my goals for the year that I set with my wife back on our anniversary in August. Probably my greatest wish is that the school continues to build and be a good resource for people, that more and more people who need that kind of help can find it, and that I've got wishes. I'm also serving a community in Pasadena. I want them to do well. I want to keep teaching there as long as they'll let me. So that's a wish. And then I'll share with you. I've got some goals. And I shared on this broadcast a while ago, my wife and I do this thing on our anniversary where we sit down, we have a romantic dinner, but we also do kind of a little writing or journaling exercise, which helps us distill out some of our biggest goals for the year to come. And not only does that help us individually, but I feel like it helps us as a couple because we're having a serious conversation about what's most important to us and what are our biggest dreams, and then that way we can support each other in those. And I'll tell you 3 out of 4, because 4 I'm kind of keeping a secret until it happens, just for reasons of my own. But I want to grow the Jewcurious School, so there's that, without kind of sacrificing any of the quality that we have now. I want to run, and I'm just looking because I got it written on my fridge over here. I want to run an ultra marathon this year. I think over the course, I just saw a post. I think I ran my first marathon like 11 or 12 years ago. And since then, I've done about 6 or 7 marathons. Haven't run one in a couple of years, but this year I want to run an ultra marathon. That is any marathon that's longer than 26.2 miles. So if it's 26.3 miles, that counts. There's some 50Ks out there that are sort of like 30 miles. So we'll see. Maybe like run a 30, like finish a 30-mile foot race, put it that way. Now, I'm not going to win any of them. I'm like a 6-hour guy. I'm not a fast marathon runner, but I do like to finish them. So I haven't. I've had some marathons where I wound up not running in them, even though I'd signed up for them, just because life got in the way and I couldn't train. But I've never sort of quit in the middle of one. I've always finished them. And I think my shortest one's like 5 hours. My longest one is like 6.5. That was embarrassing. But I want to run like a 30-mile plus race. The third thing I want to do is I want to go skydiving. And it's something I've never done before, something that like my wife and I were talking about from the time we were first dating, like we both interested in going skydiving. I'm hoping this is something we can do together. There are places to do it. My barrier is that I am overweight. Like I'm a big dude, and sometimes people say, "Oh, you don't look like a big dude," but I'm tall. I'm just my body composition is such that I weigh a lot, and uh, and so the most skydiving places have a weight limit of 240, and let's just say I'm over that by double digits and then some. So part of my goal for the year is losing weight, continuing to get healthier and healthier, and by doing that, that'll help me sort of these sort of goals racing against each other. I want to jump out of an airplane, but to do that, I have to lose weight, which is another one of my goals. So maybe those things will help each other. Those are my birthday wishes. Run an ultramarathon, keep building on the success of the Jewcurious School, jump out of an airplane, jump out of a perfectly good airplane, perhaps several times, and then one I'll tell you about later. And that's sorry to be cryptic about it, but it's kind of keeping that under my hat for now. Let's see, random question I've been meaning to ask, but keep forgetting. During the mourner's Kaddish, I've noticed that some people bow to the left, right, and center. I think during the Oseh Shalom part, what is the purpose of this? Is there a specific reason only some people do it, or is it just a custom that some people are familiar with? I think it's the latter. It's more that some people are familiar with the custom and some are not, than everybody knows the custom and only certain people get to do it. So part of it, it's almost a reflexive reaction in the sense that, the mourner's Kaddish is a prayer. Let me back up a little bit. The mourner's Kaddish is a particular instance of a larger, let's say, genre of prayers called the Kaddish or Kaddish. And there are different Kaddishes. There's like Chatzi Kaddish, which is about half as long as the other one. There's the Kaddish Shalem, which is the longest one. And then the mourner's Kaddish is slightly shorter than that, because one of the prayers that's in the Kaddish Shalem or the full Kaddish is not in the mourner's Kaddish. Again, the mourner's Kaddish is not about death, even though it's a prayer that we say on the occasion of remembering somebody who's died. There's like the word death is not in there anywhere. The word mourning is not in there anywhere. It's simply a prayer where we sort of exalt God's name. And it's a custom to do it when somebody is in mourning or observing the anniversary of somebody's passing with one less blessing. And this is not the question you asked, but I'm going to teach it anyway, because one of the blessings is, God, please answer my prayers. And it's sort of, when they figured out, when they were sort of formulating the mourner's Kaddish, they say, it's cruel to ask for somebody who's in mourning to say, God, please answer my prayers. Because when you're in a space of mourning, perhaps your most heartfelt prayer is, I want my grandpa back, or I want that person to be alive, and that's not a prayer that can be answered, and so we take that out of the mourner's Kaddish. So, but for all Kaddishes, not the Hatzi Kaddish, because that doesn't get there, but most Kaddishes end with the phrase, let's see if they quoted it here, during that last sentence, the Oseh Shalom, God who creates peace, give peace to us and to all of Israel. And so during that Oseh Shalom, B'mamav hu Yaseh Shalom, the custom is to bow to the left, bow to the right, and bow to the center during the course of that sentence. And that's for all the Kaddishes, possibly because the full Kaddish is always said at the end of the Amidah. And so when people end the Amidah, when people start the Amidah, they take the 3 steps forward, they take 3 steps, or they take 3 steps backward, they take 3 steps forward. This is the choreography of entering the presence of a monarch, right? And I taught this elsewhere, like, why do people bow and do all the funny steps and things like that? It's sort of embodying this spirit that you're trying to capture. And that is when you're saying, the Kaddish is usually concluding a section of the service. So it's like as if you were in the presence of a king or a queen or however you relate to God. If you're in the presence of royalty, you don't turn your back and walk out. You step backwards. And so, and a custom during, I guess, some part of Jewish history, when you leave the presence of the monarch, is not only to back away rather than turning your back on them, but also to bow in multiple directions. And they do like the sort of deep knee bend bow that we have. And so that's where that practice came from. When we're having a prayer where we're glorifying God and lifting up God's name, as we conclude it, it's like we're sort of praising the king and then backing away. And so when we back away from the king, the custom was to bow 3 times and then like the deep knee bend bow, and that's the end of the prayer. And so some people grew up knowing this, and they just do it sort of automatically. Like they can't say the words, oh, say shalom, etc., without their body doing something. It's just sort of a sense memory thing that happens. And some people don't know that, and that's fine too. You can say the prayer without doing all the choreography. So that's where that comes from. Your mom was Venus Black 8 because of Halle, Germany. Let's see. All right, let's see what else is going on in the chat. What have I missed? Oh my gosh, there's so much chatting going on. Tater Tot said, yes, it's almost the 1-year anniversary of Pittsburgh. I want to clarify this a little bit because there's a lot of articles coming on this, and I have a good friend who is a rabbi in Pittsburgh. I'll commend to your attention, look at Jewish Twitter, look up Rabbi Jeremy Marquise, and there's one of his colleagues and friends, Rabbi Mark Gordon. These are 2 rabbis who serve the Pittsburgh community in various contexts. I'll encourage people to read their articles about this subject. They say don't say the Pittsburgh massacre. It's like Pittsburgh is bigger than its tragedy. Don't say the Tree of Life massacre. You can say the shooting on the Tree of Life campus or the bad thing that happened in Pittsburgh. But they're really sensitive at this time of the year. This is basically the yahrzeit of what happened on October 27th, my birthday, in Pittsburgh last year, where somebody went into the Tree of Life campus, which is not a singular synagogue. It's actually Tree of Life is a campus that has multiple synagogues in it, and somebody came into a particular space and murdered 11 people. And yes, this is some people call it the greatest anti-Semitic crime in American history, and in terms of the number of people who lost their life in one instance, that is true. And so this happened about a year ago, and I think the anniversary of the shooting at the Chabad house in Poway happened about a year ago too. So that's something that's worth remembering. This could be one of those things that we add to Tisha B'Av as a significant event in Jewish history in this country. I mean, I don't make these rules. This may go down in our history as a significant day in Jewish history. Right now, I think it's just so fresh, we're still coming to terms with it. The idea that and I'm going to get political for a second because this is live chat and you can talk back at me. I don't preach politics when I'm on the Bima because it's a one-way thing and nobody gets to challenge me. Politics, according to my teacher Rabbi Ed Feinstein, belongs in dialogue. I'm happy to share my politics with you. The idea that a year on, I'm not aware of any major legislation or initiatives on the federal level either to protect Jews from a rising tide of anti-Semitism and violent acts associated with it. They're doing their best to enforce the laws in the books, but nobody's taking a new look at this or change people's access to firearms or change how firearms are studied or how these crimes are prosecuted. And people can debate with me, Rabbi, existing gun laws should have been enough to do this, or don't preach gun control like it's part of the Torah. I'm just telling you, as an informed human being, the NRA has blocked congressional funding of public health studies of death by firearm. And I'm not a perfect statistician on this. I know that more people die from suicide by firearm than homicide by firearm. That's a separate issue. All I can say is that I'm not aware of any major legislation that has been entertained or passed relating to firearms or relating to hate crimes in the year since that happened. Now, is it the government's job to protect us? Some people would say yes. Is it only their job to protect us? Absolutely not. I'll say that, as far as fighting anti-Semitism and things like that go, my tactic is, this is me, this is personally how I deal with it, is I teach about Judaism in as expansive way as possible to as many people as possible, because I feel like the more people know about who we are, how we are, that we're your neighbors, that we love our children just as much as you do, the more people see Jews as their neighbors and an understandable people rather than this group that they've heard about and heard terrible things about, the safer we become. So I think the more, rather than closing in, like, yes, we've had more security measures these days. We had more armed guards this year on the high holidays than we had last year on the high holidays. Where my wife was singing a high holiday choir, there was actually like people had to pass through metal detectors to get into high holiday services this year. I think that was a new thing. Whereas I know synagogues that have been using metal detectors for years. So yes, we have to be smart. We have to take measures to ensure our safety. The only thing I would add to that and encourage people to do is visit synagogues, get to know Jews. Like if you are in a Jewish community, invite your non-Jewish friends and neighbors and relatives to come in and see. We're not just in there having secret meetings and slaughtering animals like it's the Book of Leviticus or something. We're just like you. We live in this neighborhood too, and we love our children just as much as you do. And so I feel like the more people understand that, the less power you give to this kind of, well, I'll say the world's oldest conspiracy theory, which is anti-Semitism. So that's my thoughts on that. All we can do for the people who passed is cry for them, pray to lift up their names in honor, and take what steps we can to make tshuva for this. Like, how do we make tshuva for this? We make sure that in future situations where people are pissed off about something and they want to blame it on the Jews and they want to do so in a violent way, that they make a different decision, or that we help them make a different decision, either by being open about who we are while being smart about how we protect ourselves, or stopping them by whatever means necessary. So that's my take on that. So yeah, that's what little teaching I have there. And I'll say I'm not the person necessarily to be teaching about Pittsburgh the violence that happened in Pittsburgh, because Pittsburgh is bigger than its worst or most recent tragedy. I will recommend that you look up Rabbi Jeremy Markiz on Twitter, Markiz, because he's got a lot to say about this and has been sharing a lot of resources about it. So let's see. What happens when Midrash and a certain text, not necessarily modern Midrash, are conflicting with each other? Do we say one is true and others are false, or do we just live with the tension? Wow, Ezra, what an amazing question. So let's see. Yeah, sometimes Midrashim conflict with each other. What a Midrash is just, how do I put this? It's a sermon. Like, it comes from the word midaresh, to uncover or to interpret. And it's an interpretation. It's sort of an unpacking of the concise biblical text. And so an example is, there's a Midrash about Abraham as a child working in his father's idol shop and smashing all the idols. And that's why he merited to be chosen by God for this special covenant. And that story has become so popular that some people think that it's actually in the Torah and then look it up and can't find it. It's because it's a Midrash. It's not in the Torah, but it's a story that rabbis told about what happens in the Torah to sort of color in the vagaries, to sort of connect the dots, if you will. And Midrash, we don't necessarily, how do I put this without using too many yeshivish words? The plain sentence is, we don't paskin by Midrash. We don't make law according to Midrash. We use Midrash to help us understand certain situations that, unpack better, but we don't, rulings of Jewish law go more by Torah and the Talmud and more recent deciding of Jewish law. So we don't really use Midrash to decide what's the right way to do in a certain thing to do in a certain situation. They do have stories that have morals that we can learn from to behave better in our lives. And yes, because as somebody, one of my teachers put it, Midrashim are not universally consistent. They may be internally consistent within a single volume, but they're not universally consistent, which means sometimes they disagree with each other as the right way to act in a certain situation. And the idea is, you're presented with two different ideas and you're presented with a brain. Figure out which situation more closely reflects your situation. And yes, maybe you might have to choose between those two things. And so all the time, even in not just in Midrash, but in Jewish law and in lessons from the Torah, so it's deciding between right and wrong is relatively simple compared to being in the situation of deciding between two goods, right? I have an obligation to do this mitzvah and I have an obligation to do this mitzvah, but I can't do both for one reason or another. And so you have to pick. So, and I think that's just true about life in general. Sometimes deciding between two good things is more prevalent and harder than deciding between a good thing and a bad thing, right? That when it's between good and bad, that's relatively clear. We might want the bad thing more than we want to do the good thing, but that's relatively clear. Sometimes you're presented with situations where you have to decide between two goods, and that's the more challenging human situation. And get used to it. That's humanity. And I don't mean to be dismissive, but it challenges us to do that all the time. So between midrashim, first off, don't worry too much about breaking Jewish law when it comes to midrash, because we don't really decide Jewish law based on midrash that much. And I heard somebody once teach that we have midrash halacha and midrash agadah. And halacha means law, agadah means stories. And so they said, well, midrash halacha is midrash that we base halacha on, whereas the stories we don't. And that wasn't really accurate. The idea is that midrash halacha is midrash on like the book of Leviticus. It's like stories about more legal texts. And so don't worry too much about deciding like the legal thing to do through midrash. But sometimes you are in the position of picking a midrash or an interpretation of stories that you like better or is in more consistent with your own experience in the world, and that's okay. You get to pick, right? You get to decide which of these fits your situation better. So that's the freedom that we're given. Let's see. Question: do we consider the midrash oral Torah, or is it just personal musings? Yes and yes. I'll say it in that way, that it is part of the oral tradition. Again, we don't really decide law on the basis of midrash, but it is sort of like oral Torah. And also personal musing. It's sort of considered homily. Like the midrash is better understood, and again, that's why it's not on like the same level as Mishnah and Talmud, because we do decide legal matters based on Mishnah and Talmud. It is rabbis' homiletical interpretations. Means probably what would happen is one time this rabbi said, "Oh, you know why? You know why Abraham got picked to start monotheism? It's because his father Terach. It was a known. I heard this from my rabbi that his father Terach was a known idol maker, and this is what Abraham did about it, and that. So, and just kind of go on with your bad self. So, it is a traditional understanding that we have that was probably handed down for generations orally before it was written down someplace. So in that sense, I think it is oral Torah, and some people would maybe even trace some of those interpretations all the way back to Hashem, which is kind of the jumping off point between Torah Shebiktav, or written Torah, and Torah Shebal Peh, oral Torah. So Midrash kind of fits in that category, but it doesn't have, let's say, the same legally binding aspect that, say, Mishnah and Talmud do. So also we've got some great questions. Also building on that, can you describe the difference between Midrash and Mishnah? Mishnah is, both Midrash and Mishnah have an oral tradition preceding their publication or their redaction, not in the sense that like the CIA redacts arguments. My daughter asked me this question this morning because she saw on the news they were showing redacted documents, and she says, "Did they use a Sharpie or a black highlighter?" And I'm like, what's a black highlighter? I think just because it looks like it's highlighting only, badly. But anyway, redaction is taking an oral tradition, in one sense of the word, is taking an oral tradition and writing it down into sort of a fixed form. And this and the Midrash and the Mishnah are similar in this respect, except that the Mishnah was a writing down of explicitly legal discussions with some stories in there as well, but it was usually like case law stories about the law, whereas Midrash was written down, but it was more like people had remembered sermons that they heard, or these were different interpretive stories that they'd heard, and that's kind of the different. And they have a lot of the same characters in them because they're, or rather, when they name names of where these teachings came from, a lot of the similar characters appear in, or similar teachers' names appear in the Mishnah and in the Midrash. Hold on, I'm getting a knock at my door. We're going to just pause here. I've got a 1 second. I got a knock at my door. I think it was got a maintenance call. So I'm going to pause this recording. We'll be back with Mario in just a second. Think about the Grateful Dead. Yeah, 1 minute.
Management.
Yeah, 1 minute.
Oh, sorry.
Coming up, just a second. Sorry, something.
No. Yeah, John. So our technician's here to take a look at these.
Okay, great. Yeah, you know what? It's like late at night. It started working again. So I think we.
So what happened?
Well, what happened was
You said it.
I set it. I think it was on kind of cold because I was doing some cooking. It was hot in here, and I left, and it was still on like 68. And then when my wife came home in the afternoon, it was at 78, or the temperature was at 78. So we adjusted the thermostat so it wasn't being so aggressive, and over the course of the evening, it got cool again.
Mm-hmm. So you said it's 68. You said.
Yeah, it was.
Does it feel like it's cooling? Or?
Yeah, it's working. It's working fine now. I'm sorry I'm gonna come back and like take off the service request.
No, that's okay.
But it was just like last night. It was like I guess around 6 o'clock in the afternoon. It was like 78 degrees in here, and the thermostat was at like 71. And when I just fiddled with it a little bit, and then it seemed to be working fine after that.
Okay, let's. You want me to check it, right?
Yeah, probably just to still check, just make sure the
Okay,
freedom's gonna be
let's
okay.
turn it on. Maybe you don't need it right now, but let's turn it on. I'll check it on the roof to
Okay.
make sure that it's not electrical or refrigerant or something.
I didn't know that over there.
68 again already. Wow, 60 probably. So this will be cold.
Okay.
Probably, but I have to check it. I'll come back and I'll let you know.
So I'm gonna leave this open. I've got to go back to this meeting. So just come in and check whatever you need to check is fine.
Okay.
So,
Awesome. Thank you, John. Appreciate you, sir.
of course. Alrighty, can you hear me now? That is good radio. I just had some maintenance people come to check out my AC, and I had to see into that because our AC kind of gave up its ghost yesterday, but then mysteriously worked again. Let's see. Does anyone here know of openly Jewish indie musicians? That's a great question. Please feel I don't really know that best. So let's see. Take a look at what's in the multi-chat. Some great stuff going on today. I really appreciate this. Let's see, KG Welk, I want to jump in where we were. We do the bowing for Oseh Shalom and the Amidah, so I imagine it's replicating that whenever you hear the prayer statement. Yep. I noticed regarding bows and backward steps that you also descend from the bima sideways. I don't know if you're saying you as in the royal you, or you notice that about me. I kind of picked up that habit from a teacher of mine that, when I'm on the bima, I try not to just walk straight off the bima. It's like I typically, when I remember to, I will walk backwards off the bima, which is very dangerous. It's a very dangerous way to go downstairs. But, usually I'll grab a rail or something. So it'll be sideways or backwards. But I don't like to encourage people to walk directly off the bima with their back to the ark. It's just sort of acknowledging the sanctity of the space or the proximity to the Torah. So, Venus Black shares, changing access to firearms only limits law-abiding citizens. Meth is illegal, but people still figure out how to get it. I'm not going to argue with you there. Changing access to firearms only limits law-abiding citizens. I disagree. I agree with you that outlaws are going to outlaw. I don't agree with you that the proliferation where there are more guns in America than there are Americans by a large margin, that the more guns are available increases access to both legal and law-abiding citizens and non-law-abiding citizens. So. So there's plenty of room for debate in this. I have friends who are gun owners. I'm not a gun owner myself. I'm not opposed to it. It's sort of, for me, it's a sort of a public safety thing or a public health thing, in that I know statistically, if I have a gun in my house, I'm more likely to be injured by it than to protect people with it, especially when I have small children. Somebody says, let's rather Let's talk about cholent. Like the Second Amendment wasn't construed as the right of individuals. Okay, so we're getting into a gun control debate here. I'll reiterate my main point, and I'm not going to debate all the finer points of gun control. What I am going to say is that we have had funding blocked from studying it as a public health issue to figure out what might be safer. And the funding has been blocked by people who are in the interest of selling more firearms. So that's a fact. Whether more gun laws or particular gun laws will change things in the environment is still up for debate. But if we're restricted from even gathering the data on it, then I think that's a shanda. So let's gather the data, and let's let the data tell us that having more guns in people's hands makes the world safer. If that's what the data says, I'm open to that idea. And thus I'm going to conclude on that discussion. People are talking about Mishnah and Gemara. So Mishnah and the Gemara make up the Talmud. That's the idea. Just trying to jump into the chat. Had air conditioning maintenance here for a second. A Jethro Tull Shabbos sounds interesting. I'm with you there. I'm a big fan of Shabbos, and I'm a big fan of Jethro Tull. I don't know of any explicit connection to Ian Anderson and the Jewish people, but I wouldn't be upset. I will say, Venus Black. Any openly Jewish indie musicians? I would say probably the one that pops into mind is Leonard Cohen. Kind of hard to be in the closet about being somebody named Cohen, but Leonard Cohen, great musician, very heartfelt Jew in the sense that he had a few different spiritual traditions. Was like an ordained, practicing ordained Buddhist monk, but also really connected to his Jewish heritage. Hence the song Hallelujah, which has literally hundreds of verses out there. Like I don't know the recorded version versus live versions. There are lots of different versions of the song Hallelujah, and in my synagogue sometimes we'll sing Psalm 150, which is the last of the book of the Psalms, which a lot of the words are Hallelujah. We'll sing Psalm 150 to that tune of Hallelujah, and so that's kind of worked its way into the Jewish songbook as well. My favorite indie musician is open. I don't know if you consider Joey Weissenberg an indie musician because he's more explicitly like Jewish music is the thing that he does. But yeah, I think Leonard Cohen is probably my favorite example of somebody who is a popular musician, still on, I would say, on the indie side, but who has kind of embraced his Jewish heritage and taken those themes into his work. So Tater Tot says, "Got to go get some work done. See you guys next week." All right, we're right close to the 11 o'clock mark, which is usually where we stop. Got to get another video out today. I've got a teaching that I recorded on Parshat Breshit that I want to make sure gets out into the world that people can watch it before Shabbos. The other thing I'm going to do is I'm going to be putting out a lot more videos lately. Just kind of give you a heads up. And the reason I want to give you a heads up is that you will probably see videos from me appearing on YouTube on Shabbat. And I had a lot of kind of internal dialogue about this and talking with some of my rabbinic colleagues. My goal is to get videos out on a regular basis. I'm trying to get them done daily if I can. That is batch recording and batch editing. So sometimes you may see videos and things from me. I'm not going to do any live streaming on Shabbat. That's part of my Shabbat is I don't create new art, right? I don't create something new or create new teachings to share with people. However, I know that there are people going online looking for this stuff, and so just because I want to get things out on a regular basis, I'm still trying to figure out exactly how I want to do this. It's a little bit like the live streaming thing, but I feel very comfortable making a video before Shabbat, uploading it to YouTube before Shabbat, and having it scheduled to release just so that it's part of a regular, daily schedule on Shabbat. It's a little bit like making a cholent. Where somebody says, let's talk about cholent. With the cholent, you can put all the ingredients in a crock pot very shortly before Shabbat, turn on the crock pot, and then it's not considered cooking on Shabbat because the cooking was initiated prior to Shabbat. It's just carrying on. And that goes back literally hundreds of years. It wasn't always a crock pot. People would put the ingredients in like a cast iron pot or whatever, and then take it to the town oven and leave it in there overnight, and would come the next day with some pot holders and take it off and take it home and eat their cholent. But so just in case anybody sees one of my videos appearing on Shabbat, if it's your custom to watch things on Shabbat, go, you do you. If it's not your custom, don't feel pressured to watch something that appeared on Shabbat. But just know that when things are being published on Shabbat, no Shabbat has been harmed in the making of this video. It's only things that I sort of pre-record and schedule. So just so you know that, part of my own halakhic thought process. I'm sure there are plenty of people who disagree with me about that stuff. Somebody says, forgot to mute us, lol. Okay, so somebody probably heard my conversation with the air conditioner guys. Surprised to find that Jay Unger has Jewish heritage. There's a pretty version of Hallelujah on YouTube by the Maccabees. He was one cool cat. Yay, Cholent, never hungry ever again. Yeah. Lamb Cholent weather is coming. Very good. Very bad for skydiving, truth. I'll tell you what, I haven't made a Cholent in a dog's age. The reason being that, when I started making Cholent, I had 2 young boys in the house who were hitting sort of that preteen and then teen and then deeply teen physiology. And so I would make a pot of Cholent that used 5 pounds of potatoes and barley and beans and stuff like that. But when the boys were around, we could, Cholent would be gone before Shabbat. 5 pounds of potatoes plus other stuff. This Cholent would be gone before Shabbat was over. But when the boys grew up and moved out, we could never finish a pot of Cholent. It was like me and my wife and my 2 little girls. Maybe when the girls get older and get a little hungrier, we'll have Cholent again. But if we made a 5-pound batch of Cholent before, on Shabbat, it would not get eaten before the next Shabbat. We just have to throw it out. So, God willing, someday we're in the Cholent business again. Wish my family liked Cholent. It's not for everybody. Most things you make in a crock pot wind up tasting like crock pot. It all pretty much tastes the same at some point. Yeah, you experiment with it. Cholent, there's nothing, there are certain traditional recipes for Cholent, but it's something that's evolved over time and over spaces. Ashkenazi Cholent is very different from, let's say, Sephardi Cholent, where, in southern parts it's often called chamin, which just means hot stuff. I don't know what the word Cholent means exactly, just means Cholent. But regional the recipes vary widely regionally. It's basically any stuff that you put in a pot to slow cook so that you'll have hot food on Shabbat afternoon. And whatever you put in there, it's more about the principle than it is about any particular ingredient. And so feel free to take a recipe. If your family doesn't like that recipe, play jazz with it. Maybe it could just be a beef stew or something, and technically it's a Cholent, right? So try different things. DARPA's doing classified research on Cholent. It could be a 3-quart crock pot is good for smaller families. There's an idea. We just have this old, giant crock pot. I never thought about getting a smaller one. All right, we're going to play a little bit more Mario, then we're going to call it a day. And next time I'll be sure to mute myself when I'm talking to my building maintenance. Let's see. You'll use all your momentum from running the air. Forget about that. Okay, so now we're actually... I thought we were in Bowser's Kingdom. Oh, no. Are we still in Bowser's Kingdom? I thought we were in Bowser's Kingdom before, but apparently we were only in Dragonland. Ariel Bird shares, Faye Levy has some lighter recipes for Cholent. It is possible. Oh, Bowser's Kingdom. Look at that. Oh, that's right here. Everybody's like dressed like samurais and stuff here. So listen, I'm going to play for a little bit longer, but I know people have to go at the 11 o'clock Pacific hour. So thank everybody for joining with me today. I couldn't think of a better group of people to celebrate the birthday of the Jewcurious School. And I know many of them wanted to. I'll be in the forums in the Jewcurious School a little bit later today, talking about some changes that are coming up, just some additions that I want to make in the coming year, some things we might push pause on, but feel free, if you're in the Jewcurious School, you're going to see me in the coming year. As part of my resolution, you're going to see me a lot more in the chat and spending more time less time making new mini courses, more time making Hebrew content, and more time serving people in the community forum. Let's see, I don't know what's up with these guys. And we'll be, you know, if you're in the Jewcurious School, we'll be talking more about that. And if you're not in the Jewcurious School, you know, consider checking it out. Now might be the time. I don't know, maybe I'll do some birthday specials or something for new members. Think about that. Whether it's my birthday or the Jewcurious School's birthday. Oh, I think what I have to do here is capture one of these dudes. Poke. Poke. A very uncomfortable woodpecker. Alright, Kitty says it's a milestone we can all be proud of. Also recommended, oh, let's see. Somebody says Otolengi. I just want to do a little show and tell here. This is also a very good cookbook. Somebody mentioned Otolengi, Yotam Otolengi, Sami Tamimi. This is like I forget where we got this. A friend gave this to us, but this is the Jerusalem cookbook. Has a lot of great Jewish recipes in here, but it's not just Jewish recipes. It's more of the cuisine of Jerusalem, which includes Jewish, not so Jewish. Also includes some things that are, you know, strictly speaking, aren't kosher because they made mix meat and dairy, but not everybody in Jerusalem keeps kosher the same way. So, but in any case, if you're looking for like the taste of the Middle East, the Otolengi's Jerusalem cookbook is fantastic. Let's see. So, Kay Dixie says it's a milestone we can all be proud of. Happy birthday to Jewcurious School. And so, if you're not in the school, keep a lookout. I think I might do some. Maybe some birthday specials to help you make your decision. You can always, you know, I have this policy where I want to give people a month to try it out. Now, to join, you do have to enroll with the usual tuition. However, I have a 30-day guarantee policy, which means if after the first 30 days you decide it's not, or if, you know, before the first 30 days you decide it's not right for you, then you are encouraged to, oh hey, Powerman, you're encouraged to ask for a refund, which means like, look, I don't want anybody there who doesn't want to be there. I don't want to take anybody's money who isn't getting value out of it. So for the first 30 days after you join, you could try it out. You could join and then, you know, quit your job or do something where you dedicate the next 29 days to going through, you know, 80 hours, whatever it is, 80 to 100 hours of video lessons. You could learn everything on that site, and then on day 29 say like, you know what, I learned this isn't for me. I'd like a refund, and I'd be like, sure, here you go, no big deal, and and that's fine. Nobody does that, but you know, don't be that guy. But that's just my guarantee that if somebody tries it out, really gives it a try, it's not for them. I don't want you to be someplace where you don't feel like you belong, or that's not the learning you were looking for. You decide that you're more interested in learning from a different teacher. That's fine. So that's why I have a 30-day, no hassle guarantee on the school. So everybody has a chance to. I mean, I want you to make some sort of commitment if you're going to be there, but everybody has a chance to back out with no questions asked, no money lost. So that's another part of my commitment. Hey, buddy. Can you crush me? Oh. Take that, blockhead. Oh, KDX's cheer 100 for the Jewcurious School birthday. Very cool. Thank you. Alright, Bowser's Castle seems to be a relatively easy place to get around, he said too soon. maybe we'll get to the first boss battle and stop there. Really want to get that video about Parshat Breshit uploaded ASAP. And make sure that I schedule tomorrow's video ahead of time, so no Shabbat or Yontif is harmed in the making of said video. Second courtyard, same as the first courtyard. Oops. I guess I can't do that. Alright, I guess I'm supposed to go around and get a bunch of mini moons here. Get some Bazabills. Gotta go, everyone. Be happy and healthy. Very good. Shabbat Shalom, Ariel Bird. Speaking of birds. Alright, now I'm getting dizzy. Okay, that's 2 mini moons. Go away. Alright, where's the next mini moon? Here we go. There's one over there. That's 4. Let's see. There's gotta be one more around here somewhere. Oh, that makes me ill. Where's this last mini moon? Alright, does anybody out there see this last mini moon? Am I missing it? Something out there looks important. Okay, there is a mini moon around here somewhere that I am not seeing. Yeah, I should avoid that. I gotta get this last mini moon, and then we'll go. Is it around the bottom there somewhere? Oh, I know where it is. There we go. Yay! Thanks, Radio Angel. Appreciate that. Now I can go this way. So I won't pass you. No need to hit you if I don't have to. Oh, next level. Big brutal battle. Okay, we can handle one boss battle. Then we'll go. That's a good end of the day. Okay, good. All my hearts. Still a chef. Let's see what we got in here. Don't really have enough for an outfit. Yeah, we'll take one of these though. And maybe I'll be a samurai chef. Samurai chef. Yeah. There we go. Samurai Chef. I miss John Belushi. I didn't even think of that. John Belushi and the Samurai Chef. Cheeseburger, cheeseburger, cheeseburger. Okay then. Okay. Nothing good will ever come of this. Maybe they took them a little hard. Yeah, thank you, Kathy. Oh. Whole place is on fire now. Oh. Glad about that one up life. Kind of schmutzy there. not a pleasant place to be plying my Mario trade. So really, no place left to walk. Litterbug. Alright, lady. Alright, thank you, Kate Dixie. Remember to click on the little heart to be notified of future live episodes. If you're watching us on Facebook, be sure to like this Rabbi John Carrier page. If you're watching us on YouTube, be sure to subscribe. You can even click a little notification button to make sure you get notified when new things like this drop. And if you're watching us on Twitch, there's a little button, there's a picture of a heart on it, it's probably purple, to click on that, and then you can be notified every time we go live on Twitch. Whatever platform suits you, really glad we found a way to do multi-chat and multi-platform streaming. Be sure to check out the new videos that are coming out on the Rabbi John Carrier YouTube channel. We're going to be talking about books a little bit. I did a book review of a great book I read recently, As a Driven Leaf by Milton Steinberg. Also going to be uploading a video before Shabbat on the Torah portion of the week. And you may see videos in the future from me that appear on Shabbat or holidays, but if they do, just rest assured they were pre-scheduled like a cholent. All right, we get a double boss battle, then we'll call it a day. I just can't stop playing. I'm having such fun on it's our birthday. We get to play video games on the birthday of the Jewcurious School. Okay, breakdancing. That was too easy. Uh-oh. Spoke too soon. Just like... That's two. There's too many of them. Too many spiky hats. Take that. He'll be back. He's fine. He's just disappeared for a little while. Alrighty. What a great note to end on. Listen, everybody, I am so great. Kathy says, thanks to all of you for your participation. I echo that. I'm just more grateful than you can imagine. Come on in. I'm just more grateful that you can imagine that you have joined me for this learning, for this celebration today, for the learning in general. It is my life's joy to learn about Jewish stuff with people who are curious, no matter where you're coming from. So thank you for being a part of this journey. Thank you for an amazing year in the Jewcurious School. If you want to check that school out, wherever you are, there's probably a link somewhere to where you can find out more about it. And I'll be delighted to learn more with you. What's the difference? Let me just, I'll answer one self-imposed question. What's the difference between doing these live streams and doing the live stuff or the videos that I put on YouTube and the Jewcurious School? Can you learn with me without being in the Jewcurious School, without paying a dime? Of course you can. I'm putting out all these resources because people were so generous with me. I created the Jewcurious School so that we could kind of take it to another level. Gives me the time and the space to really dig deep into topics. So today on YouTube, I'm going to put out a video that's about 6 minutes long on Breshit. It's based on a topic that we studied earlier this week for about 35 minutes in the Jewcurious School, where we had like a downloadable text sheet from Safaria, other resources, a live chat where we could discuss it live. versus, let's say, just watching a short video on YouTube, which is significant in itself. You can learn that way. If you want to get into the discussion live, if you want to meet other people who are learning and have conversations with them in the community forum, that's another way to take it to the next level. It's also just more organized. You can find, I've got coming up on close to like 300 videos. I'm looking at 270 videos or something on YouTube at this point, but they're all over the map. And sometimes you'll find what you need just by searching. In the school, everything's organized like a 26 lesson course on an introduction to Judaism where I cover all the topics in a specific order. It's just more organized, it's more intimate, the lessons are longer and more in-depth, and you have access to the community of people who are learning alongside you. And that's sort of where I put my priority attention, as it were. People will email me and message me, and it might take me a few days to get back to them. But if somebody's asking me a question in the Jewcurious school, that's where I get right on it as quickly as I can. So that's the commitment that I've made to my students there. So that's the difference between learning with me on Twitch or YouTube or something and learning with me in the Jewcurious School. I like to show up 100%, be my best rabbi self I can be wherever I'm teaching. Just in the Jewcurious School, we go more in depth, and I have a different commitment to the students in that school than I have for people who are, say, learning with me in different online spaces. So that's what we're up to. Keisha Wilcox says, may you live to 120 but always feel 20. Thank you very much. There's a midrash on that somewhere, as it says that Sarah lived to be 127 but was always as beautiful as like a teenager. So thank you for that. Noah says, maybe you have an awesome Jewcurious and personal birthday. Hope you have an awesome birthday. Thank you so much for everybody who participated, and always my joy to learn with you and to be a part of this community. Until next time, heroes, peace.